If you love your books with some heartwarming tales of community and friendship and of course life in Botswana, then today's book just might be for you. Today I'll be reviewing The Minor Adjustment Beauty Salon by Alexander McCall Smith. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today we're looking at the 14th book in the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series. And as usual, I will tell you up front, I love these books. I love this series. However, if you have not read them from the beginning, you probably are not going to care much about individual reviews. For that reason, I make it a point of actually giving a decent synopsis, at least in my opinion, of each of these books. That's not something that I'm always good at in my reviews, but since there's so many books in this series, one of the most valuable things I feel like I can do is to try and explain what happens in each book, because they can kind of run together, because to be honest, by and large, these books do go from one book to the other pretty seamlessly, and from what I can tell, more or less in real time. This one, just like all the others, of course, brings the same charm and wisdom and humor that we've come to expect from Alexander McCall Smith. And as always, I'd love to share with you what exactly I enjoyed from this book and what you guys can expect. As usual, the center of this book has some of the cases that Precious is trying to solve. The two main cases in this one. The first case involves an inheritance dispute when a wealthy farmer, Edgar Malopo, leaves his farm and his cattle to his nephew. But when a man claiming to be his son steps forward, the lawyer, whose name is Shiba Kutso, suspects foul play, and so Precious has to uncover if there are any kind of inconsistency in the man's story, and I, as usual, will let you read the book to find out how exactly she deals with this, and if she does find out any kind of inconsistencies, and exactly what approach she takes to resolving them. I don't know if I've made that clear, but I do think that that is also one of the hallmarks. It's not just a matter of finding out what someone is doing or finding out if someone's being dishonest, but specifically finding a way to help people resolve issues in what is a fair and moral way. The second case that they are dealing with is a bit of sabotage, hence the name of the book, The Minor Adjustment Beauty Salon, because there are rumors that there are some kind of underhanded tactics that are threatening this new business. So Precious, of course, has to take a look and see what exactly is happening and who is responsible for some of the tactics, some flyers that are being distributed, some negative things that are being said about it, all of that. And we'll see how Precious, of course, figures out who exactly that is and what exactly her solution for that will be as well. Now, if you're wondering why I'm only talking about Precious and we're not talking too much about Grace or any of the other major characters, that is because there is a major life change going on for Grace in this book, so she's not heavily involved in any of the cases. And that would, of course, be the fact that she is very pregnant and they have just moved into a new house. And in this new house is where we're going to have, I don't know if this is the first time this has happened, but it is definitely one of the most pronounced times in the book so far. We're going to see Grace start to have a bit of a discussion with her shoes. Yes, you heard me correctly. She loves shoes, which I pointed out before, but she is now actually going to talk to her shoes. um, they don't really explain exactly how. You just they say that Grace every so often like hears the voice of her shoes in her head, and they try to give her good advice, and so far that seems to be the case. And in this book in particular, there's going to be a time which her shoes tell her to be careful under the bed, and she thinks that this is foolishness. She looks under the bed and lo and behold discovers a snake under there, a poisonous snake, and so she is going to freak out, and she is going to seek her now husband Puti, and they're going to find a way to resolve the issue. They're going to, of course, find a dog that can capture the snake, and then in a bit of humor and a bit of surprise, this is going to put such a shock on Grace that she will actually go into labor and give birth to a beautiful, healthy boy. And I'd say that that is, of course, the major event that is happening in this book, is the introduction of Grace's son. I will also say that that snake which is caught will contribute to an even funnier element of the storyline. As you recall, Puti has an aunt that is very difficult and has a tendency to be a bit of a bully, and when she finds out that there was a snake in the house, she actually refuses to move in, much to Grace's surprise and also her pleasure, because she's not exactly in a hurry to have the ant there. Those are the main plots of this book, and I think I've given you a pretty good idea of whether you think that you would want to read this series at this point or not. If you're on the 14th book, I don't really know what else you're trying to get from me aside from maybe a good synopsis, which is what I've tried to include here. But also, as usual, let me try to give you a few of my favorite lines, because I love the humor and the wisdom and just the little bits of information that we can get. So just a couple of my favorite quotes in no particular context or order. I just wanted to mention them. Of course, there's always that element of humanity and humanism that I really just appreciate. When Precious says, "If you are there to staunch the tears of the world, then it does not cross your mind that you yourself may weep." I think that pairs well with another moment when she says, "Contemplating this vast human suffering, you might be tempted to shrug your shoulders, but you could not." Of course, there are many other great quotes that aren't necessarily dealing with human suffering. I do think that Mr. J.L.B. Matakoni has a wonderful little bit in which he says, well, I guess this is him thinking, "The mention of God made Mr. J.L.B. Matakoni frown. In his experience, people were always claiming that God agreed with them, even when there was little or no evidence that this was the case." Of course, there's always a good deal of humor in these as well. Let me include one of my favorite, in which Precious contemplates, "Could you say that your business had expanded if it had gone from owning one teapot to two?" Of course, I think that those are just a few of the little tidbits of wisdom that I really enjoy getting from these books. Who is this book for? Well, as usual, it is for someone that has already enjoyed these books up to this point. Let's be honest, this little section of my video is pretty pro forma at this point in the series, because you've decided whether you like it or not if you're on the 14th book, and in my case, I do. I, of course, recommend it for anyone that is interested in what has become a very long series, and I will always add the caveat that you probably could not read them out of order. So if you really want to read this book, you've got 13 books that you need to go back and read, and I stand by that. So who is this not for? Well, people that don't want to read the 13 books before this, or they just don't like how comfy and warm these books can be, despite the fact that they do sometimes deal with some really real problems. I would say that the good-heartedness of the main character and those around her really make these just so much more interesting. But if you have a difference of opinion, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.